Welcome back to Marriage and Relationships, and today we're talking about effective communication in marriage. And Professor Miriam, what are some of the keys to effective communication in marriage?
Yes, I'll just mention a few. There are many, but one of them is sensitivity. You must be very sensitive about the other persons, because there are two people. In marriage, there's the sender, the receiver. So we must be very sensitive to the two of them. And also the delivery mode. How do you deliver your message? I said there are, as I had mentioned earlier, there are many ways of having to deliver messages. It can be verbal, non-verbal. So the mode of delivery is very, very important, how you deliver the messages. Number 3, the sender clarity. The one who is sending the message must be very clear about what they are sending. And of course, before even coming to the sender, there's the content, the message content. What is contained in that message matters how you deliver it and how you handle it. Then also now the sender must be very clear in sending the message. Clear and simple. If you complicate, then the recipient might not be able to get what you're talking about. The other one is the receiver must have the right perception of the message, because if you have the right perception for the message that has been given to you, you can be able to internalize and interpret it in the way it's expected. But otherwise, if you have a different perception, then you understand it your way. And then also, there are some people who have want their way, so they send a message, but they are seeing themselves in it. So once they put themselves in the message, they might misinterpret it. So misinterpretation depends on how the recipient is. If it's somebody who thinks things from a broader perspective, then they will see the message as it's supposed to be. But those who have a narrow perspective, they may see the message narrow. And a simple message can be complicated depending on whom you are dealing with. Yeah, there are people who can complicate the whole thing. The other key is the feedback. Very important. The message process is never complete without a feedback. You must get the feedback, and that feedback will now communicate the center whether my message was received well in the way I wanted it to be received or not. Very important. Yes. Okay.
And what are the barriers to effective communication in marriage?
Yes, the barriers to effective communication are quite many. But I said to begin with that we must respect one another. In the absence of respect, messages might be misinterpreted. So we must respect one another. The other thing is we must have love. Because we are talking about marriage, then we must speak in love. In the absence of love, you can never communicate effectively. But by the way, you can also communicate negative messages. And so if you're angry, you communicate in anger. Remember love. So that, remember there's love. If in the absence of love, it can cause harm. But when you love, you will care for the other person. So be careful. Then also noise and the moods. People have different moods. And noise can also hinder effective communication. When you make a lot of noise, somebody will be put off even listening to that message. You can keep on making a lot of noise. And by this I mean, you can have noise in terms of words, and you can have noise in terms of gesture and behavior. You might behave in a different way, and somebody will be thrown out of balance, and therefore they're not able to listen. The moods also are very important. For example, in a couple, the young women, they have different moods. Women have different moods, and the men must master the moods of their women. Because you might have the woman today is in the wrong mood completely. Maybe they are during their periods, the moods are off. Or a woman is expecting a baby and the mood is very different. So the man has the issue of to balance at what point to pass what message, because the moods are very erratic, not as for men, not as much as for the men. But that is very, very important, because that will help in delivering the message. The other barrier is misunderstanding. You can pass a message and somebody totally misunderstands you, what you are saying. It was very clear, but somebody takes it out of balance and sends a wrong signal, and that can cause a lot of chaos in a family. So it's very, very important. Tension is another thing. When people are tensed, you cannot communicate effectively. I have heard even some people say, see, kikombe iko hapa, you can pick the cup and put the tea for yourself. And somebody did not know there was war. You know? But that can throw somebody off. Yeah, there is a spoon, there is a cup there. Why don't you just pick it and serve yourself? That is a wrong tone, and that's noise, and therefore that negates their communication. There's also the breakdown. There's a breakdown in communication. When there's total breakdown in communication, people are just silent. But although silence also is communication, I'm not ready to speak today. I'm not talking anything. So you are silent, you are quiet. Remember, when they are children, you have to be very careful how you go about it, because the children always know. Children are the first people to know whether communication is going on in the home or not. They will know. And they will know whether daddy and mommy are talking today or not. They will know. So the spouses must be very careful to make sure that when it's a third party, life is as normal as possible, so that they don't interfere with other people's lives. Then self-centeredness in communication is a barrier, because this communication has to do with me, not the other person. All the time I'm talking about myself, how about I feel, how I see, how things should be done my way. Then that way it can never be effective communication. Always give room for the other person. That's why we read in Philippians at some point that we must have, Philippians chapter 1 verse 3 tells us that we must consider other people important, and the other people as we are. That's what it tells us.
Okay. Yes. And what are the components of effective communication?
Yeah, the components of effective communication, as I had mentioned a little bit earlier, are found in James chapter 4 verse 1 to 3. And I will not overemphasize on this, but the issue of having to listen. Listen. If you don't listen, you will never understand what the other person is talking about. Listening is very important. And in the listening, if you are seated, like you are folding your hands like this, when somebody is talking, you can bend a little bit forward. And if it requires you to write down, you can write down something when somebody is talking, so that you get to know what they are talking about. And before the sentence is complete, never interfere in the process of answering. I have an answer, let me answer. No. Wait until the person talks, they finish. After they are done, then now you have your turn to speak. But in the absence of that, there will be no clarity in the message, and it will be distorted, and it can lead to chaos. So we have to be very careful. The other thing that, another component is the sender must be very clear in the message. It must be very clear and simple. As I said earlier, we must be very clear and very simple in the message that we are passing. If we expect to yield the results that we are aiming at, that's very important. The message has to be, the sender must be clear and simple in their communication. The message itself, the content, must be clear. Because remember, I'm not talking about the sender now, I'm talking about the content of the message that is being passed. It must also be very clear. What message are you passing? Are you passing a message for asking? Are you passing a message for thank you? Are you passing a message for cautioning? Are you passing a message for discipline? Are you passing a message for change? What kind of message are you passing? That is very, very important. And we need to understand that very clearly. Then the recipient perception and attitudes also shape the message, and can become a real a key component. How they perceive, how their attitudes are, matters a lot. Because if their attitudes are wrong, then at the end of the day, the message will be also wrong. So that's very, very important. The feedback that is given to whoever is very important. The words, the gestures, the actions, the expressions are very, very important, because that comes as a result of the feedback. When you're getting the feedback, it's either you talk, or you give a gesture, or you act based on what you have been told, or just an expression. Whether you like it or you don't, you can show it. And the women are best at this. Yeah, because men don't behave that way, but women will behave that way. They could be using their shoulders or their just facial expression. I don't like what you have said. I don't like it, and I'm not going to do it. But they might not even tell you, but they have decided not to do it. So Nauta do. That's another message. Nauta do. What are you going to do after all? So we have to be very careful about all those aspects. Yeah.
Okay, and talking of, because we've just talked about the barriers of effective communication, you've just mentioned on how maybe silence in marriage, you find they're not talking to each other, the children are noticing. How can you maybe hide it in the way that maybe even the children, they're not supposed to know that you have maybe issues with your partner and so and so?
Yeah, concentrate on issues and not yourselves. For example, the first thing is address the children's needs, because at that point, let's address the children's needs. They will not even get to know. When you start addressing the children's needs, according, each child, they know, oh, okay, daddy is sensitive about me, mommy is sensitive about me. They will not get to know what the differences you're having at that point. But at the same time, go to mommy and do this. Tell mommy to do for you this, Tell daddy to do this for you. They will know. Or daddy, can you help this one in this area? Or mommy, can you? Of course, you don't call them mommy and daddy. You don't call your husband mommy, daddy, or don't call your wife mommy. It is wrong. But when you're telling a child, that's the only way to tell them. Go and tell mommy to do this for you. Although your wife is not your mommy. She's not mommy. And your husband is not daddy. They are not daddy, because that's another communication. When you call all the time, you call your husband daddy all the time, in his mind he remains daddy, and many things might go wrong. Or call your wife mommy, and the word remains mommy all the time, things will go wrong in another quarter, because that's a source of communication. Your wife remains Miriam, if it's Miriam. Your husband remains John, if it's John. Yeah, they remain, their names are there. Don't decorate them, call daddy and call them mommy. Unless you're telling the children, go to your daddy or go to your mommy, and that's the only way you can be able to really, hide this, so the children don't get sensitive about it.
Talking of components of effective communication in a healthy marriage, you have healthy marriage and unhealthy marriage. What's the difference between the two?
Unhealthy marriage is a non-functional marriage. It's not functioning. And that means there's communication breakdown. There is no love in it. There is no sensitivity. There is no respect. It's non-functional. They're not even developing. It is not. But when marriage is healthy, you find that people are very honest, they are loving, and they are caring for each other. They have gifts. They are taking each other out. They have the body language. You'll be telling you, these people really like one another. Though, sometimes we see that, like the people from the West, of course, they like to hold one another's hands. For us, we find it's very funny when we're holding each other's hands here, because our culture and our traditions, that's not previous tradition, and the culture did not allow that, but people are getting out of it. When you feel like you want to touch your spouse, it doesn't hurt, because that person belongs to you. It doesn't hurt. It's okay. It's in order. But also it matters where you are. Yeah, where you are. Also it doesn't. So you need to, when you're touching, touch appropriately and the right place in the right manner, so you don't offend others who are not at your level, because others are not at that point. So there's a clear distinction between unhealthy communication in marriage and healthy, because the healthy one, you should be able to see the outcome. There'll be giftings, there'll be outings, there'll be action, and the love is expressed clearly. While the other one, which is unhealthy, many things again will be taking place. You'll be seeing that there's no progress. People are not progressing, and people are not able to do things together, and actually there's total breakdown in the whole thing. It can't hold together, and in fact people feel uncomfortable with one another, while these others are enjoying. There's harmony, there's unity, there's the peace. The atmosphere is good, and where the atmosphere is good, even the children have the confidence to live in such a marriage where there's pure communication. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Miriam. You have come to the end of our program tonight. We've been talking about the effective marriage we've been talking about effective communication in marriage. See you next time, same place, same time. I'm Masikiare. Have a good night.